Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second webinar. Today it's about a new feature, which is called Zones. And before we are going to start, I wanted to let you know that we are obviously doing a recording of this webinar because it's a live webinar and you can access the stream later on again. So if you don't want to appear in this recording, then you need to quit the webinar, but other than that, you are not appearing here, just in the chat and on the sidebar. So if you have some questions, meanwhile, as always, feel free to ask us. There's a comment functionality, works on all platforms. And yeah, happy to start now and welcome to our webinar. Okay, today we also have, like last time, a partner. This time it is Hendrik Boldt from grandcentrix, and they have been working on a new asset tracker, NB-IoT enabled asset tracker product. And we thought this is a great addition to our new feature, which is about asset tracking, geofencing, things like that. And I would like to introduce Hendrik. Maybe Hendrik, you can also introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your person.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. So I'm Hendrik Boldt. As you already said, I'm working at grandcentrix. I'm product owner here since 4 years now. And yeah, we started with some external projects, and now I'm the product owner for the asset tracking product. Yeah, we call it a product. Yeah, you have it there. Yeah, it's more or less a product platform. So we have currently 2 trackers available. Yeah, this is what I do here, and this is what I did
Great.
so far.
Yeah, and I know I've seen you have also a couple of more informations pretty soon in the slides. And yeah, these are 2 of those trackers. I was so happy to receive 2 of them and play around with them already. I think you also have some. And for the agenda today, we also have a live demonstration prepared. And we are going to send somebody from grandcentrix with those trackers on a bike, I think, or maybe a car, I don't know. Maybe he walks around with those trackers. So we have some interactive live demonstration. Yeah, and then at the end of everything, like always, we have a Q&A section where we are going to answer your questions. Okay, before we start, let me tell you a little bit more about our zones feature. So far, as probably lots of you already know, asset tracking has not been so popular on the Datacake platform. For sure, you could add your GPS devices, tracking devices, and we would have been able to more or less track those devices on a dashboard, and you could basically also see the position. But so like geofencings were missing, alerts were missing, and things like that. And with the introductions of the zones feature, we go a different way. We add a couple of features which are needed for asset tracking, derived from some of our enterprise customers and their feedback. And basically what we want to do is, instead of the need to create KPIs or dashboards manually, we also integrated a new KPI section. But I'm going to show all of this in a live demo in a few. Yeah, in the next slide, you can see already what I was talking about. So the main features that we've added with zones is the ability to add geofences. Next to geofences, you have the option, or Datacake tells you more or less KPIs, like where are your devices, how many devices are in zones versus how many devices are outside of zones, how long do they stay inside of a zone. And then also we can send customized alerts and use our report or rule engine to do some reporting, more or less, and we have like an audit log. But I'm going through these things in a live interactive demo, and we're going to show a simple basic setup use case for the asset tracking feature. Now I'm handing over to Hendrik again, and Hendrik will tell us a little bit more about those 2 devices here. Really exciting. And there you go, Hendrik.
Yeah, I try to make it a little bit short, else I can do 1 hour about the devices. Yeah, in general, as you can see here, we have these asset tracker solar and asset tracker construction. Our goal was to have more or less a tracking platform. That means they are sharing their hardware. Baseline is a Nordic chip, which is super low power and as you already said, NB-IoT and LTM or LTM Cat M1, which is then our standard for delivering the data. We are using Vodafone SIM cards, of course, since we are a Vodafone partner. And the device itself does GPS positioning or self fallback. So this is how it can show where it is. And the devices have some similarities and some differences. As you can see, solar tracker specialty, as you can imagine, it is solar powered. And the solar powered device has it maintains free lifetime for 8 years. So that means you put it somewhere, as you can see on the right side on the picture, for example, a container, and this thing connects to the network, sends its positioning, is good to go. And this is this is especially then the case if you want to have something which is maintains free, battery lifetime, even without any solar, is 700 tracks minimum. And normally it will do much more, but if you have a bad situation, it can only do maybe 700. So that means even if you have darker periods, it's inside somewhere where it's dark, or you put it in a bad weather condition for a longer time, then it should still be able to set its position. One big thing for us was that, especially if you have it something like containers, that it can withstand every temperature scenario. And this can be achieved by using only nickel metal hydride batteries. These are, as you all know, these normal Amazon basic battery you have in your remote or something like this. So they don't have so much power, but since the device is super low power, it can still withstand a long time. And they can be used up to -20 and up to 70 degrees environments. So that means there should be nowhere on this planet where you should normally not be able to use this in the environment. They have IP67 water and dust resistance. I think this is more or less a little bit industry standard, but upper standard, so you can also submerge it into water for a period of time. This is what the solar tracker is. Very similar, many similarities is for the construction site tracker. As you can see, it's much smaller, and it doesn't have of course a solar panel, but it is very rough. This is why we call it construction tracker, because it's more or less for construction sites. And it's let's say its USP is that it has EK10 hit resistance. And if you would Google that, you can see it can withstand hits with a hammer, baseball bat, kicks, and stuff like that. So that means if you have a very rough environment where something has to withstand higher impacts or much more water, mud, you want to pressure wash it, it's also possible because it has IP69. This means even pressure water shouldn't be a problem for it. Inside it's potted, so there's completely PCB. Everything in there is encapsulated, so nothing can reach it. And also here the specialty is that it can be charged, so it's not a one-time use throwaway thing, it's a charging thing. But with a full battery it can do 15,000 tracks roughly. So depending on how many tracks per day you do, it should withstand a couple of years even. This is the main thing about the trackers, let's say. I could say now hundreds and hundreds of other things. But I think if you're interested, easiest to go to the grandcentrix page, and there are the devices with all the data sheets and tables and so on and so on. But I think now more interesting is that these trackers are especially good for a case with Datacake, because we are providing the trackers, we are providing a back end, but we don't provide a front end. That means you can directly get the data from the device as raw data from us, and as you will see today, you can use the Datacake platform to have a front end where you can see and configure the trackers and have some more functionality. Yeah, I think that's it. So I could say much more about what features it has, what functionality, but I think with the demo we see movement detection and so on, you will see what can be done with it.
Yeah, I think they're both quite impressive. Yes, you can see the container tracker is a little bit bigger, but the asset construction is like a really rough device. It's also very heavy, so you can feel how solid it is. Thanks, Hendrik, for the introduction to your devices. And as Hendrik has mentioned, if you have some questions, head over to the grandcentrix webpage. We are also going to share the links later. Well, then I would say we can move on to the next part of the webinar, which is the actual live demonstration. And as mentioned before, what we've done is that we are going to prepare a live demonstration, and somebody from the grandcentrix team is walking around with one of those trackers. So, Hendrik, at some point, I will tell you that you could send your colleagues on the road, and then we can start. But first of all, let me introduce you to the zones feature. Okay, so for this webinar, I have been creating a new workspace, completely empty, but just these two devices from grandcentrix, which are remotely placed right now, and they are added to this workspace. One thing before we start, the features I'm showing you are working for all device types on Datacake. It doesn't matter if it's LoRaWAN, NB-IoT, or API, or an MQTT ingested device. The zones feature is available as an element in the platform, on the platform, and it works with across all of the devices that you have in your workspace. So before we start, let's go and open up one of those devices and access the dashboard. And this is like the typical overview that you are usually seeing. And so basically, we could also see that something is happening right now. So it is in the moving state right now. And yeah, you can see all the typical elements like temperature, accuracy, which comes from the device. You can see the dashboard is user definable, and this is the dashboard from the device. And so Datacake was very limited in terms of tracking. What we could do before was basically having a map widget and then showing a route and going back and forth in the historical view of the position or route. We wanted to change that because our customers were asking us for more integrated features and support of the rule engine with geofencing and stuff like that. And we came with a different approach, which we are calling zones. And on your sidebar, you already see that the zones feature is available across all workspaces, across all accounts right now. Before I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the features in general, you can still see that there is a beta tag on this. This doesn't mean that this feature is just in beta version. It is fully functional, fully tested, also in scale with a couple of enterprise customers. The reason for that is that right now you can go ahead and create an endless amounts of zones right now without being charged for the amount of zones. This probably will change in the future. And this means that there will always be zones available for everyone for free, but we are limiting probably the amount of free zones. But we are not limiting the amount of features or the features attached to the free plan, just as a note. But you can go ahead now and create zones as many as you want. And we are probably going to limit this in the future for free plans only. So just a note, and this is the reason why it is here. You can click on this button to go to the documentation and read more about that. This is now the zones view. And if you click on that, the first thing it starts with is the overview. And this is more or less a KPI, or basically the KPI view of the zones feature, which tells you how many zones, how many devices are in zones, which of the zones is the most crowded one, the least crowded one, and the moving statistics of the device. If you now want to start with zones, what you need to do is go over and use the tab bar on top and click on list. And on list, you can see right now we don't have any zone created. So this is what we are going to do right now. We click on this blue button, like always, which says add zone. And by clicking on this, this opens up a new modal where you can put in a title, description, and also a tag or multiple tags for the zones. Right now, this place here is pre-selected, which is the last location or the shared locations of all devices. And we can now go ahead and more or less create a zone. So I know that the trackers were placed in here, and we can basically create zones with dynamic sizing. A note on sizing right now. Right now, the maximum size is 1 kilometer, so 1,000 meters in radius, if I'm not mistaken, so 2 kilometers in the diameter. For sure, we could adapt it, changes, let us know the feedback, but the reason for that is mainly performance. So if you need like big, large zones, you can better work with multiple zones. So we are calling this home zone because that's the place where the trackers are right now. You can optionally provide a description like my home, something else, and we are now adding this zone. So what happens now is zone has been added to my workspace. We can see, okay, this is the zone here, description. And we can also see that there are devices in. This means that when you create a zone, Datacake's backend is already checking all of the devices that you have in a workspace and already seeing if there's devices inside a zone and already adding them to the list. We can also add a second zone. Let's more or less move somewhere else. And this is like important zone, something like this. Add this zone. This has been added and we can see, okay, there are no devices in there. If we now go back to the overview section, we can see, okay, we have 2 zones and we have 2 devices which are in zones. These are the devices that moved within last 24 hours. Now, moving in this case, or in correlation to the zones feature, means you can hover here, devices that had at least 1 zone change within the last 24 hours. This was a requirement from a couple of enterprise customers that said like, okay, we want to know the moving between zones, not the moving of the device itself, but moving between zones. And devices not moved within 24 hours are stationary devices inside a zone. This was calculated automatically. The least crowded zone, because there are no devices in it, is important zone. Sounds weird, but it's just the naming. And the most crowded zone is the home zone, obviously, because of that one was created where those 2 devices are. We can go on list and see this as well. And if you are in the list, you can also click on a separate zone and see a detailed view of every zone. And in here, we provide a couple of more KPIs. We, of course, provide a list of devices that are in the zone. And you also have the eye icon to basically get to the sidebar dashboard of that device. And then you can user define that sidebar dashboard and combine it with multiple measurements. And you can see the average time a device has spent in that zone. So this is an average about or over all devices and the time, how long these devices are in that zone already, and the amount of new devices within the last 24 hours. And for sure, because I just added the zone, this is just some, needs some time to calculate and to provide the real KPIs on that. We have a map where you can see your zone and then also these 2 devices. And again, this works like Datacake always works with selectors. You can click on that, and it's in the sidebar and so on. And you can access the device directly. And we have an audit log. And this audit log basically is available for single zones, but also for the whole zones feature. And this just basically tells you the event, like this device entered the zone, it exited the zone. And in the future, we will probably add some more features here, but right now you have entry and exit as a trigger. You have some configuration for zones. Basically, you can change name and tags. And that's basically the overview of a zone in detail. Let's go back to the zones feature. And then just to showcase, this is the audit log, which would be valid for all zones. And we also have the map. And we can see here now, this is the even bigger zone. And if I zoom in, this is a smaller zone. So this map basically, even if you have hundreds of zones around, shows all zones and the distribution of all devices on the map. And you can basically use it like you can use these other features in Datacake as well. This is the basic zones feature. And before we are going to start now with moving on to alerting, Or let's wait. I would like to create a rule before we start by making the live demonstration, because there are multiple kinds of triggers which you can use to create custom alerts. Because overall, this screen is great. You can see KPIs. You can see important zones, which things are which devices are moving and which devices are not moving. But you, of course, want to get notified, or you want to create a reporting inside the rule engine, or you want to get notified if devices stay too long inside a zone, for example. And what we have done is, in conjunction with the rule engine, we created a couple of new triggers. So now it is possible to basically monitor zones by creating a rule. Let me do this. Again, clicking on the sidebar on the rule engine and then on add rule. And now this works as before. For the rule engine, you need to provide or pick the product which the device belongs to. Going to explain in a few why this is the case here. We have just one product because, as Hendrik said before, they are both very similar. So we can work with one product here. And both of these devices, no matter if it's asset construction or the asset solar, are now monitored by this rule. And we could use tags to separate them and things like that. But the important part now is the triggers. And like before, we had triggers for measurements. So if you want to compare temperatures, battery, whatever, online, offline notifications. But as you can see here, we now also have the triggers for zone events. And we have 3 new events, which are zone entry, zone length of stay, and zone exit. I think that zone entry and zone exit is pretty easy to understand. Zone length of stay probably also, but just to explain it, what it does is you can have a trigger here and activate this. And then, for example, you can put 60 minutes. And now the rule is watching your devices. And if the device stays longer in that zone for 60 minutes, then it sends out an alert via email, SMS, more in a few. But what I want to do now is zone exit. And I'm not going to filter. I want to include all zones because you can also filter zones by tags, for example. And then I want to configure an action. And this is basically the same editor as always. You can set email actions, SMS, and webhook to directly forward events into third-party systems. And for this demonstration, I'm going to use a simple email action. Click on next. And this allows you to, this shows our editor, and this allows you to create the custom email notification with the templating language. And I'm using a temporary email, which I just basically found on the internet, email address, so we can see it here. And if somebody wants to send me an email right now, you can do it for sure. Then it will appear here. So you can put in as many receivers as you want, and then you can provide your own subject and things like that. But we have a couple of more template language presets. So let me show you. Dear recipient, this is an automatic notification to inform you that your device, and then you can put triggering device name has exited the zone, and then triggering zone name at triggering zone, entered at or exited at. These are now both available because I clicked on both events, but I just want exited at. Thanks, Datacake, or whatever kind of things you want to put in there. So let's add this action here. No condition, because we want to have this happening always. You could fine tune the rule with conditions. And now let's call this exit notification. Save, and we have now an exit notification. So Hendrik, now you can go ahead and tell your team members that they could go for a walk or for a short bike trip, so we can see this notification being triggered. And this would, whoever was that, but yeah, super funny. Going to delete this. Lucas, this was probably you. No, he wouldn't do that. Crazy. I knew that this was happening. So yeah, exit notification. And we've basically created everything, exit, and let's go into the devices once more. Dominic said he was already on his way. So let's see, this is moving 14 minutes ago, and this was not moving, so 8 minutes ago. So it's probably this device. Okay, while he's on his way and moving, we are waiting for events to arrive. And meanwhile, what we could do is we could create another rule in the rule engine. So again, for the same product, and in this time we want to have the zone entry notification, and we configure an action, email action, next, and we are going to do the same here. This is an automatic notification to inform you that the device, it was already in there. Triggering device name has entered zone, and then triggering zone name at triggering zone entered at. And it's also, we have some options to work with timestamps. It's all available on the documentation. Thanks, Datacake. And again, I'm providing this email address at, there's some advanced settings. You can read about them in our documentation, but more or less these would, you could use them to allow a rule only to be sent once or to be sent repeatedly and things like that. But no need to change this. We leave everything like it is. We add this new action. For sure, if that is also, we see this happening quite often, that people want to send a webhook to a third-party system. I was talking about the template language. We do have the same template language also available for zones. And in here, you could, for example, also put triggering device or triggering zone, and then the name. So you would be able to create your custom JSON in here also with custom headers and then send this to third-party systems. But this is out of the scope of this webinar, just to let you know that this works. And this is the zone entered notification. Save. Okay, we have the exit notification, zone entered notification. Both set up right now. So let's go into our zones, but we still can see that devices are still in that zone. Let's go and click here. We can also see the map still. So we probably need to wait. Those trackers right now are in high frequency sending mode for this demonstration. So this means that they are set to send an interval every 5 minutes, but this is not the ideal case. Maybe we can switch Hendrik in right now, and then maybe Hendrik can also tell us a little bit more about the sending intervals and things like that.
Yeah, so the devices can be configured from external, and currently we did the lowest what is somehow reasonable for our device, which is like currently 2 minutes. But since it's a low power device, you can imagine every 2 minutes doesn't make so much sense. These devices are more or less designed for a case where you do it once per hour. And since it's doing movement detection, so you detect when it starts moving, it detects when a movement has ended, and it will then send the final position. So it also doesn't make so much sense if you don't want to have a super exact road or something like this. As you saw in the comments, Dominic is on his way. I think he grabs his bicycle now and starts driving. So it could mean that he takes like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to grab the bicycle. And fingers crossed that it's not raining in Cologne. I don't know how the weather is there. But yeah, then we should see the movement here. and we can see the moving thing, because even if it cannot transmit a GPS position because you are somehow deep in inside of a house or something where GPS simply is not available, it will still send data and also give you the cell location. And Simon, maybe you can say something about this small button on the right.
Yeah. This has been created in relation to your trackers because they can send cellular-based location for situations where you have no GPS signal available. But this switches to the next cell tower and gets the location from the next cell tower. And if you need to work with precise informations and precise zones information, then for sure cellular location would probably always jump out of the zone and then back in. So we have the option for this device to deactivate this. So I was deactivating it right now because you said that he probably has the trackers at home, and then it would just basically use cell tower, which is a few meters away. But if you live in an area where I live, where the next closest cell tower is 1 or 2 kilometers away, this could be a problem. So yeah, we deactivated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this case, it makes completely sense. But yeah, as I said, you can configure multiple things. But for this use case now, we use simply movement detection for the device, and it should simply update while moving. You have 2 devices there. I think he has both devices with him, because we said if there's any issue with the device or whatever, then we have another thing. Oh, it's jumped.
But we can see he's moving right now. So he moved already. He's now at a different location. And
yeah, he's on a bicycle, so every 2 minutes, you can imagine that is a little bit distant.
He's quite fast, right? Because that was
could be, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's great. But yeah, also just, of course, we are parsing all the extra information from your devices. So we also know when a device is in stationary mode and things like that. But right now he's still moving. He also moved out of the zone so we can get in there, and he took both trackers. So that means now we have 0 devices in zones because he moved out. And we can get into the audit log and see, okay, we have 2 zones entry and 2 zones exit because he took both out of them. You can also see it on the map. They are here right now, and these are those 2 zones. And if we get into the temporary email, because I was deleting the spam messages, I was probably also deleting the alert messages. But yeah, let's wait until he gets back. And basically, then we will see the notification appearing and being sent out. I tested it this morning, it worked super great, but maybe this open tool for providing email addresses is not the best idea. So next time we use a different one. But yeah, but this is more or less how things work. And how the zones feature works in conjunction with the GPS trackers. And this is our approach of making the whole asset tracking topic more easy than it was before. And I think that the combination of the grandcentrix device with the Datacake platform is a great example, because the grandcentrix device, Vodafone grandcentrix devices, they both aim to be very easy, very super fast usable. So you can basically, because it's cellular, use them directly out of the box in combination with the Datacake platform. And then basically what we are trying to do with the asset tracking feature is making asset tracking super easy. So you don't need to create a dashboard. You don't need to create a manual overview to get all these KPIs. And we will extend this feature by more and more requests. So that, we can really have like the asset tracking as a solid encapsulated piece of or functionality on the Datacake platform. Let's check those devices once more. Let's see. Oh, he seems to be, he's now really, like, probably he's going around. So we can see like in a few that he will be probably back. One little thing which is probably important for our super users on Datacake, or the existing users on Datacake that want to start with Zones feature. As I've mentioned before, Zones feature is available for everyone to start. But to let you know how this works, there's one detail which is important, because I saw that we had a couple of support requests, customers asking how the zones feature works with their older GPS devices that they've been adding to the platform a few years ago. And meanwhile, we have added a couple of different functionalities. And this whole determination of where the device is, the location to use for checking against zones and so on. This works in the configuration, in the field lists. We have introduced a couple of, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago, we have introduced this role principle. And in here, you can define tags for your location fields or for your fields in general. And we have one tag, which is the device location. And because we haven't had this this functionality before, it could be that older devices don't have this field tag assigned. So if you have a location field, and it's even possible to have multiple location fields, like separate cellular location field or whatever, but if you have a location field, make sure that the device location role is set to that field. On the templates that we provide, all these things are already pre-assigned, but if you have older devices, you probably want to assign the role, because the platform and the zones feature listens for changes in the device location field. And this also allows you to still have multiple location fields on a single device and then switching between those things to use. Let's see where he is right now. Okay, maybe we can just leave him a little bit on the bike and he will continue and be back in a few at his home zone location. And this was the introduction into the zones feature from my side. And I think we can move on and answer a couple of questions. First of all, let me say thank you to Hendrik as well for providing the integrations, the trackers, and for managing the live demonstration on his side. And also say thanks to your colleagues for taking the tour with the bicycle. That was really great. And that's it for from my side for the introduction. And I would like to move on to the Q&A section.
Yeah, one of the first questions was like directly pricing. So you can go to the grandcentrix webpage, so grandcentrix.net, and there's also a product section, and there you can buy a test package. These are 2 devices with one solar tracker, one construction site tracker, or you can also get 2 solar or 2 construction site tracker with charging cables. And this is, let's say, the price for if you buy super small quantities, like 5 devices or something like this. If you want to have higher quantities, you have to talk to our sales channel, but then directly prices go down. You can imagine test packages only to get some people on board to see if they're willing to pay something for the device. And of course, if you buy 1,000 devices or whatever number, then the prices directly drop. So, but they are the sales people are for that topic. If you have hardware related stuff, then I can tell you everything.
And this question is probably for me. Can we create the zone perimeter from the smartphone Datacake? The smartphone app from Datacake still is the more or less viewer for dashboard. So you can scan a QR code of a dashboard and then bring your devices, also these devices here, via QR code into the application, the smartphone, the native smartphone app that you can download from the app stores. However, since our front end is mobile friendly and mobile ready, you could for sure go inside of your workspaces and add zones from a smartphone using the browser, but not the smartphone application right now. Yeah, can I also create square zones? Not yet, but we are having plans to extend these like square zones. And then the next question as well is, what can I do if I have an irregular shape? Not all places are perfectly round. Multiple zones. Yeah, multiple zones is one of the reasons to do. So per zone, you can only have one square or one shape. That's because of performance and things that we have decided to do, but you could create multiple zones. On our roadmap, there is already the option to, or not the option, but the feature for extending this. So the editor is already ready to provide square zones, but also custom shapes. But because this is a little bit more in implementation, we started with round zones because that was also aligning with the majority of our enterprise customers. And these requests, they were working with round zones. This is the way we started, and we will bring more options in the future. Great. I think this has been everything so far from the questions. If anyone still has a question, feel free to share. Let me see, meanwhile, what our driver does, but he seems to be, let's see.
Should be on his way back. I wrote him a message, so we are live chatting
Yeah,
here.
we can see he's almost back. But in the meantime, we have another question. Will it be possible to import KML files to add multiple zones very quickly and easily in the future? Yes. We have already, so there was a bigger enterprise customer having, like, I think almost way over 500 zones. And because nobody wanted to manually set up 500 zones, we have been using our APIs. So there is an API already to mass import zones and create them on the fly directly. And we are going to bring a import feature for CSV on the platform because we found out a couple of customers provided us information via CSV file, and then maybe in the future also via KML file or things like that. But if you need it right now, we have an API for mass importing of zones, which we have already been using, and this works super great. Are you thinking about showing an address in a list form? Yeah, there are some many informations or many basically requirements or feature requests and improvement requests already, and some ideas that we had. So one of the things that we want to do is, for example, when you add a zone, this is very simple right now. And what we want to do is we want to provide the option to put in manual location via latitude, longitude, but we also have the idea to provide an address field or a picker and something like that. One thing to note here, we already have something coming for using reverse geocoding for addresses. So this will also be in conjunction with the zones feature. Yeah. I think this is now for Hendrik again.
Yeah, hardware question. Yeah, we can ship internationally. The devices have CE and FCC, so everywhere where this is okay, it's easy to do. But yeah, this international shipping is available. Yeah, wherever you want, ship it around the world. And also roaming for these contracts. Yeah, for of course because of MBIOT and LTM, they have cellular contracts. These are roaming contracts, which are same price all over the world.
Yeah, there's some more questions. Let me see. When I activate history on the map widget, it's supposed to show all locations. Like, yeah, this is most likely the case that the resolution on your history widget is not set to the lowest resolution. There's documentation on our documentation about this specific topic that you can basically set the resolution, and this shows more points then. Yeah, my map is having colors because I selected or set it in the widget configuration to have colors. So you can override the colors. You can even choose if you want to have satellite view, gray colors, dark mode, satellite view, and the colors that you've seen on my. Any plan to use Google Map for the map? Right now, we don't have any plans. This might change in the future, but right now we stick with the map box and leaflet. I think this was all. There's one more important question, which is, I click on that one, Carolina. Yeah, this. Will the feature become an add-on we need to purchase like the rule engine? No, it won't. This is, like I said, available right now. And the reason why it is still considered beta is basically because right now there's no limitations on rules, on zones. You can add multiple zones, as many as you want. There will be a restriction coming, so that, for example, on the free plan, you can create a number of zones for free, fully featured, and no additional purchase needed. And then we want to so it will be limited by the amount of free zones. And then if you want to get to the next tier and have more zones, there will be an updated pricing and a package pricing, which will include the zones inside of the package, but it will not be a separate purchase like the rule engine. But there's some updates coming this year, later this year. Yeah, and we'll let you know separately. Okay, great. Let me see. So I think I'm just checking out where Dominic is, and let me switch once more to the screen, and we can see that he has been driving around this route here, and it seems like he's now back at his zone. So we can go in here, and yeah, we can see that right now the devices are back in zone, in their home zone. We can see it in the audit log as well. We can see them on the map. And we can now also see here, because I deleted it, I also deleted the email address, but right now they are back, and we can see, dear recipient, this is an automatic notification to inform you that the device zones webinar has entered zone home zone, and then the timestamp and the normal time code. Yeah, so that's it, more or less. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Thanks again, Hendrik, and also to your team, and also Carolina for managing the webinar. Again, this will be available as a recording, so you can access it again on YouTube. We are going to share the link later on. And if you have any questions, feedback, recommendations for our zones feature, then please send them to our live chat or at support@datacake.co. Thanks, and talk to you soon.
Thank you again for having me, and yeah, thanks for the webinar, because also not so into Datacake, I'm into the hardware stuff. So yeah, cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Also from our side, as a software team, we always like to see new hardware.
Yeah.